Hello, good day, everyone, and welcome once again to the Delali Network. We are back again with another content on your permanent residency pathways in Canada as an international student. And I'm here with my guest once again. He was here last week, so I'll give him the opportunity to once again introduce himself. So, my brother, you're welcome. If you can introduce yourself to our guests who are listening to us now.
Yeah, thank you, Sly. Just like you said, I've been here before. Last week I was here. As you can see on the screen, my name is Martin. I've been here for some time. I was once an international student like you. When the Lally said we should come online and then just talk about the Canadian experience class, I decided to come in and share my 2 cents on these things. It's not an immigration advice. We are all educating ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, if you just joined us right now, I'll entreat you to share the link to your various platforms and invite others to join because today's discussion is going to be interesting and revealing as well. Okay, so before we even open discussion for today, that is on the Canadian Experience class and the category based draws, there is a clarification which my guest would like to make regarding the presentation for last week. He wants to clarify an explanation on the tie breaker thing. So, Mr. Martin, if you can go ahead and clarify that before we even begin today's session.
Yeah, so I think that one, it's for maybe we can fuse that when we are doing the Canadian experience class explanation. When we are talking about it, definitely we will touch base on that. Yeah. So I
Okay,
think last week there was a mistake and error on that, so we will clarify that. Yeah, going forward.
okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So, talking about the Canadian experience class, basically, what does it mean and who qualifies to apply for the Canadian experience class? That is the CEC.
Yeah. So I think last week we spoke so much about that. So just a recap, right? So just a recap from what we said last week. For the Canadian Experience class, is one of those economic migration programs that we have here in Canada, right? And just like we clarified last week, when you talk about the express entry system, it is not an immigration pathway. It's just a system which is used to manage an immigration pathway, which could be those economic migration pathway, of which the Canadian Experience class is part. The express entry system is basically used to manage three applications under the economic migration class. So we have the Canadian Experience class, we have the Federal Skilled Worker class, and then we have the Federal Skilled Trade class, right? So we are touching more on the Canadian Experience class. So the names, just like you know the name, right? The Canadian Experience class mostly is for people with Canadian experience, right? So if you have Canadian experience, basically it means you may qualify. I'm using the word may because it goes beyond just having, Canadian experience. It goes beyond that, right? Yeah. So in the nutshell, I would say that to qualify for the Canadian experience class, you should you need Canadian experience, right? But then with the Canadian experience, that one we need to go deep down into that. But on the surface, you should have accumulated some experience here in Canada.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Martin, for that clarification. So, if you just joined us now, I urge you to share the link so that everyone will follow us right from the beginning till the end of the discussion because it's going to be very, very interesting today. Okay, so how does the Canadian Experience class, that is the CEC, how does it differ from other express entry streams? If you can just oppose them both for us.
Okay. So for the Canadian experience class, just like we said, it's intense, to invite people who have Canadian experience, like people who have been in Canada, who have worked in Canada, who have Canadian experience. So that is the focus for that, right? So in comparison with other classes, which is the federal skill class targets people both abroad and inside Canada, right? But for the Canadian experience class, it targets people with Canadian experience class, not that you necessarily have to be in Canada. I said this the other time.
Yeah.
So when you say the Canadian experience class, it doesn't mean that you have to be in Canada at at that time. You may have gained Canadian experience, but you may not be in Canada. So I gave an experience like someone may come here, do a 1 year, course, maybe get 1 year Canadian experience, and then go out of Canada. The Canadian experience still exists. So the Canadian experience is more on you having it, not you residing here. I don't know if you get me. So some people will be like, oh, for the Canadian experience class, I need to be inside Canada. No, you don't have to be inside Canada. What is important is you need to have that Canadian experience class. And that Canadian experience should be in the last 3 years. You understand? It should be in the last 3 years. So, for example, if your Canadian experience was in 2020, I mean, it's more than 3 years. So, if you are to use that, it will not count towards the Canadian experience class. It may count towards other class, but not the Canadian experience class. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, for the Canadian experience, they need you to have at least 1 year Canadian working experience in the last 3 years. And for the work experience, they said it should be in tier 0, 1, 2, 3. So we explained that last time, right? So it's not any occupation, it should be in occupation tier 0, 1, 2, 3. So we said for the tier, all jobs or occupations in Canada are classified under certain tiers, right? So your occupation may be in tier 0, it may be in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So if your occupation or your experience fall under those tiers, and then you have 1 year Canadian work experience, which so there's a way that they measure, that 1 year work experience. So in terms of hours, they say that it should be 1,560 hours. So that's 1,560 hours make 1 year Canadian work experience. So this 1,560 hours, it could be cumulative, right? Meaning you can get, let's say, 200 hours here, 300 hours here, 400 hours here, join them, accumulate them, and then you get that 1,560. So it does not have to be, let's say, just one place, right? It doesn't need to be in one place that you work with just one employer and then you accumulate all that 1,560 hours. No, it could be with several employers, right? And then at the end of the day, if you add everything together and it is 1,560 hours, it equals 1 year work experience. And then also, the number of hours that you work in a week should be at least 30 hours. So for IRCC, they consider 30 hours to be like to be full time of work, like full time of work. Let me put it that way, right? So if you work 30 hours, at least 30 hours every week, right, it is considered as full time. So probably maybe you could do 15 hours here, 15 hours here. If you join it within a week and it's 30 hours, you are good to go. You have achieved that. So if you add those 30 hours together, and within a year you're able to get, that 1,560 hours, it equals 1 year working experience, and that should be in tier 0, 1, 2, 3, and it should be in the last 3 years. So that is how the work experience side work for the Canadian experience class. Yeah, and like I said,
So,
mhm,
so just a quick question concerning the work experience, even though we'll be coming to break each
mhm,
of the requirements into details. Let's
mhm.
say I've never been to Canada before, but I've been fortunate to get a remote job with a Canadian firm. Will that also qualify me to apply for the Canadian experience class, even though I've never been to Canada before, but I work for a Canadian firm remotely?
Okay, so if you work for the Canadian company remotely, on what status were you working? So you could work it remotely, but you are outside Canada.
Okay.
So when you go there, there's something that they say. So they say something like that work, at the time that you were doing that work, you were authorized to do that work. So if you can click, you can scroll down a
Okay.
bit.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So the second point, you see, be gained by working in Canada while authorized to work under um, was authorized to work under temporary
Temporary
resident.
resident
Okay.
status.
So if you worked remotely, you get it? If you worked remotely, you must have been physically in Canada and working for a Canadian employer. So this answer our question. So if you are working remotely, you must have been physically in Canada here and then working for a Canadian employer. So the reason why I'm stressing on this is, you see, I said something about you could have Canadian work experience, but at the time that you are doing the express entry or submitting your profile, you may not be in Canada. So when you get an invitation, IRCC would want to know that during the time that you had that work experience in Canada, were you authorized to do so? So what work permit or what status were you doing that kind of job with? So this answers it, right? So even if it's a remote work and you are outside Canada, right. Now you have the explanation there. So they are saying if you worked remotely, you must have been physically in Canada here and be working for that employer. So if you get a remote job, you don't have anything, you are just outside Canada, I mean, they don't consider it as a Canadian uh, work experience. Yeah. For the purpose of IRCC Express Entry, Canadian work experience class. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay. So talking about the requirement for the Canadian experience class, you've spoken about a few. I want us to go into details and get more information about each of the requirements, what one is supposed to do, and how one is supposed to prepare each of these requirements to meet the application period or timeline when the time is due. So you spoke about the Canadian skilled work experience in either tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. So let's say I am working in different tiers. Let's say I've gotten a job in tier 0, and I've gotten a job in, let's say, tier 2 or tier 3. In that case, can I combine all to get the number of working hours required, or it is not possible?
Yes, you can do so. So if you look at the first point, they're saying that your skilled work experience must be in one or more of these NOC categories, right?
Okay.
So it can be in one or more. So just like I said in the beginning, for the Canadian work experience, you can accumulate them, right? So ubetumi GB waha or GB waha GB waha, join them piece, and then you can get that 1,560 hours. Some people are very fortunate to just have one employer, right? And then they are good to go. But some people, boy, the person may do, few here, I mean, part here, part there, part there. So far as those jobs at the time that you were doing them, or at the time you had them, where in 0, 1, 2, 3 you are good to go. You can combine them, right? Yeah. So for your question, you can combine them, provided the jobs are within those tiers 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. So let's move on. Talking about the job offer. Let's say I get a job after school and I'm working. According to the tiers, some of the job they have the job titles. Let's say I get a job offer, but I perform most of the main duties listed in the tier. But then the job name is not exactly as the one quoted on RCC website. Do I still qualify to use that job letter to apply for my Canadian experience class if I have the 1 year work experience or the number of hours?
Okay, so you see, IRCC definitely knows that on their website they have certain occupations that they have listed, right? And they may not be able to capture everything. That is the truth. They may not be able to capture everything. And when you go to each employer has different name for certain roles. We may all be doing the same thing, but the title may differ. So IRCC does not necessarily look at the title. They don't necessarily look at the title, but they necessarily look at what you did, right, per that job. So, for example, if you said I this, for example, if you are, let's say, you say you're a software engineer, maybe maybe in your firm, they may not necessarily use the word maybe software engineer. I'm just giving an example. But the things that you do are things that a software engineer does, right? So when you are getting your employment letter or employment reference letter, how some people call it, IRCC is expecting you that, for example, if you are picking an NOC, so every job has an NOC, or every occupation has an NOC. So if, for example, I'm just giving anything random. So for example, if your NOC is, let's say, 42, and then we go under NOC 42, you are supposed to, let's say, as per the roles and responsibilities for NOC 42, you are supposed to go to work early in the morning, add A and B together. In the afternoon, when A and B is done, you do B and C and D and O, right? That is what they have it under. So for your employment letter, if your employer also writes, okay, Delali did in the morning A and B, in the afternoon he did C and D, the role title may differ, but because the responsibilities are the same, they still clarify, they still classify you under that particular knock. You get it? So all I'm trying to say is they don't really look at the title, not necessarily the title, but the roles, the responsibility. So if you can share your screen again, I can read it from there and then explain it more to confirm that that's what we mean.
Okay.
So you
So
see, the third point, they are saying that you should show that you performed the action in the lease statement of the NOC job description. So just like we said, every NOC or every occupation has an NOC code. And then when you go under that code, they have some responsibilities or descriptions that IRCC has placed there, right? So the job that you are doing, for you to be classified under that no code, whatever role or responsibility you are doing should match that. It shouldn't be the same thing like verbatim, copy to copy. No, it should be similar to it. And then when you look at every NOC, there is a leading statement, right? So they are saying that your role, you should have performed that lead statement in that NOC. So for example, if we open, maybe you can open the NOC and then we can explain it.
okay. So
Yeah.
I don't see.
And then just type any random thing and let's check it from there.
Okay. So
So you click on the website, NOC website, yeah.
what's the website? Okay,
Okay.
so that's the National Occupation Classification. That's the full meaning.
Yes.
Okay, so
Then you can
let me
type.
just go for a software engineer
Mhm.
search.
Okay. So software engineer, yeah, you can click it. Okay. So you can scroll up a
Okay,
bit. No,
okay,
up.
okay,
Okay. Yeah. So you see now software engineers and designers, that is what we have on IRCC. And then the NOC code, the number is 21231. So how would you know the tier? So the tier is the second number in the NOC number. So what is the second number? The second number is 1. So because the second number is 1, it means this job, which is software engineering designers with NOC code, like with NOC 21231, has a tier of 1. So the second digit in there gives you the tier. So if you want to know that your occupation is within tier 0, 1, 2, 3, you have to check your no code. So when you check your no code, the second number or the second digit tells you the tier, right? So for software engineers and designers, is in tier 1. So by mere fact that you are a software engineer or designer, which is tier 1, you qualify for the Canadian experience because we are saying that the occupation should be either 0, 1, 2, 3. And here it is 1, so it is in there. So when you come down a bit, you see that this is what IRCC have written, like software engineer and designers, but they have given example titles, right? So let's look at the example title. So that's what I was saying, that they don't necessarily, focus so much on the title. So there are some places maybe a software engineer may be referred to as, application architect, a cloud infrastructure engineer, they may not be doing the same role, but they may be similar because cloud infrastructure engineer may be doing something different from a typical software engineer, but there are certain things which are similar, right? Good. So they have given a lot of examples, something similar to software engineers and designers. So the title could even be a software designer, a software design verification engineer, software design project, a lot of them, telecommunication software engineer and all that. And then when you scroll down a bit, you see they have added inclusions. So inclusions, they have added systems architect. And then if you scroll down a bit,
Okay. Yeah.
yes. So you see, they have even added system architect. So if your role is not even a software engineer, and then the title is a system architect, you still qualify under that particular NOC. So now, when you come there, they have duties, right? So duties, they are saying that this group perform some or all of the following duties. So they are not expecting you to do all of that, right? They are expecting that you may do some of that. So when we go back, they are saying that you should have performed the lead statements in the job description or lead statement in the NOC description. So the lead statement, where is the lead statement? That's the first thing. So the first thing is collect and document users' requirements and develop logical and physical specification. Right. You don't have to copy the exact thing, but it should be something similar, or you must have done something similar in the lead statement. You get what we are trying to say, right? So if your employer is writing the letter for you, you have to let them know that this is how we do it, because there's a format that you have to follow. So in the format of the work experience letter that you are taking from your employer, issue one, it should bear your title, right? And then two, it should state the start date, so when you started the job. If you are still doing the job, they can write it there that you are currently doing it. Or if you have, maybe your offer is terminated or something like that, you are done, they have to write the end date also, because they want to know the period that you started the job, and then the period you started and then ended, right? So as part of the work experience letter, your name, which of course needs to be there, your role should be there, and then some employers go as far as adding even the NOC. Some employers, they can add it because some of them, they know all these things, so they can add the NOC. And then they need to add the period. So when you started and when you ended, they need to write it on that letter. And then the number of hours you were doing every week. The reason being that they need to calculate the hours. And as we said, IRCC, every week you need to do at least 30 hours. So anything 30 hours going, they are good with that, right? And then how much you were also paid. You need to write it on that letter. And then the last thing they will look at is the roles that you did. That's the most important thing, because they need to know that you did so and so. So when your employer is writing it, you have to make sure that after you have identified your knock, that is the NOC, you try and match the leading statement. The leading statement is the first thing that you see there. You try and match it. You don't have to write the same thing, but it should be something similar, right? And then for the rest, you must have done any of them in there, right? So maybe the second one is research, evaluate, and sensitize technical information to design, develop all the blah blah blah. So you have to write something similar there. It doesn't have to be the same thing. Let me correct this. It does not have to be the same thing, but it should match it at least. Yes. So this can serve as a template or a guide for you when you are writing your role and responsibility for your employer to put it on paper for you. It needs to be signed. It needs to be if it needs to be stamped. It needs to be stamped. They should have the information on it. It could be your HR, it could be your manager who write that, sign that, add his or her email, contact information and all those kind of things. So that is the structure of how the work experience letter should be. Right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That is very, 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 very detailed. Let me just come back to the um, first one I was projecting so that I'll take the questions again from one of the sites. So if you're watching us now, we are live on the Delali network. We are talking about a Canadian experience class. Just go ahead and share the link to your various platforms and encourage someone to join. Okay, so talking about the work experience as well, the letter and those things. What if I am engaged in, let's say, a volunteer work, and through that volunteer work, I have been able to gain that number of hours required? Do I still qualify to use that volunteer work, get a letter and apply for Canadian experience class, or since it is volunteering and it might not be anything which will lead into the payment of wages or salaries, I cannot use it. If you can clarify that.
Yes, so when I was talking about the work experience letter, I made mention that they need to write the amount of money that they paid you, your salary there. So the work that you did should be a paid work. So volunteer work, unpaid internships, all those kind of things doesn't count. So for example, maybe you went there as an intern, right? And then you worked for let's say 3 months. Then after the 3 months, they retain you, gave you full-time work offer and all those things. So your actual work start counting from when you became a full-time, when they started paying you, right? So if it was an intern, if it was an internship, volunteer work which was unpaid, you cannot count those hours. As
Okay,
simple as
okay,
that. Yeah.
okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so can you touch on how to count the work hours once again so that that can be clarified very well for our listeners?
Yeah, so just like I said, they use hours, right? They use hours to do the counting. So they are saying that when you are able to accumulate 1,560 hours, that 1,560 hours will amount to 1 year, right? But how do they get the 1,560 hours? How many weeks do we have in a year? Is it 52 weeks?
Uh,
52 weeks, right? 52 weeks, right? So 52 weeks make 1 year. And I said that every week IRCC wants you to do 30 hours. So once you do 30 hours within a week, it is calculated as full time. So if you are to calculate 52 hours, sorry, 52 weeks, which we have in a year, by 30, what do we get?
okay, so
So 52 times 30.
so that's 1,560.
Okay, yes. So every year is 52 weeks. And then every week they expect you to do 30 hours, right? So if you multiply 30 hours by 52, then you get 1,560 hours. So if you're able to accumulate 1,560 hours, then we count it as 1 year.
Okay,
And I'm saying that they don't expect you to do it continuously, like the 1 year should be, continuous. No, you may do, let's say, 6 months for some time, maybe break 2 months, come and do another 6 months, whichever way you want to do it. But at the end of the day, if they are adding everything, it should amount to 1,560 hours, which will give them 1 year. So if
okay,
you look at the first point, they are saying that full time at one job. Like I said, some people are very lucky to have a full time at one job, so they will not be doing up and down here. So for that, what they do is they are saying up to 30 hours a week for 12 months. You get it? So up to 30 hours a week for 12 months. So if you do that calculation like I did, you should get that 1,560 hours. That is for people who are able to get a full time job at one job. And then there are some people who may also be doing part time. So if you look at the second point, they're saying, for example, 15 hours a week for 24 months. So if someone is doing 15 hours a week for 24 months, it will accumulate to 1 year, which is 1,500. You can do that. You can do that calculation because if you are doing 15 hours a week, right, for 24 months, we know that every 1 year is 52 weeks, right? So that would be 15 times 104. And then what do we get?
so 15 times 104, that is 1,560.
Yes. So someone can also do, part time, just like I said, it could be part time work, just add them up. And then once you're able to accumulate that 1,560, you are good to go. So if you check down there, they also say you can work as many part-time job as you need to meet this requirement. So some people may not, get the full time. They may do part-time, short here, right? So once you add those hours together, if you are able to accumulate 1,560, it's equal to 1 year full-time work experience, right? Mhm.
Okay, okay. So someone can use 1 year to gain that 1,560.
Mhm.
Somebody can use, let's say, 1.5. Somebody can use 2 years.
Yes.
But at the end of
Uh-huh.
the day, they are looking at a total number of hours.
Hours, yeah. So
Yeah.
just add them together. Once it is 1,560, they They equal it to 1 year. That's why for every employment letter that you submit to them, it needs to have the period, the duration, right? So when I was talking about the format of the letter, I said that it should have your name, of course, your name will be there, your role should be there, the title, and then some people can add the NOC to it if you are fortunate, but if they don't add it, it's not a big deal, right? But it's advisable for them to add it. Sometimes the employers are very petty about these kind of things. Sometimes you have to convince them because some people they don't. But you can guide them and then they will help you out. So you can add the NOC to it. You need to know the period. The period is very, very important. So okay, I started this date, I ended this date. I started these days, I'm currently working there. It needs to be very clear. And it needs to be very clear that okay, for every week, how many hours were you doing? Okay, I was doing 30 hours, 24 hours, 40 hours, whatever. They need to keep it there so that IRCC can do their calculation, right? And then, was it a paid job? Yes, I was paid. And this is how much I was paid. So they can write, okay, you were paid $60,000 per year, you were paid $24 an hour, 24, whatever. They have to state there. And they need to talk about your role. So your role should match the NOC that you fall under, right? Just like we said. Yeah. So in totality, I mean, this is very brief and concise.
Okay. So just a little bit of clarification once again. If I am not working a full-time job, I'm working a part-time job. Once those jobs fall under tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, I can combine all of these part-time jobs to get a total number of hours they want, if that is right.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay. So we've discussed about the work experience. That is the Canadian skilled work experience. Now let's talk about the language ability. If you can briefly touch on that as well.
Okay, so last week we said that the work experience is one part. So I think today we have done justice to the work experience. We have explained it much better, and I think everyone should have it. Yeah. So that is one part of it. And then the next one is your language. That's the language exams. Most people always talk about English, but it's not just English alone. We are leaving the French people out, right? So let's not assume that when you say language, it's just English. No. So it could be English or it could be French. Just that we are biased. A lot of people, speak English. So you always say English exams, but no, French exams is also there. So Canada, we are bilingual, right? So you could, do English, you could do French, right? So you need to write an English exams or you need to write a French exams. So depending on where you are, or depending on the tier that you find yourself. So just like we said, depending on the tier. So you could be tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Right, good. So when you come to the English exams, you need to get a certain score for you to be eligible or to qualify. So if your occupation is under tier 0 or tier 1, you need to get a CLB of 7, right? A CLB of 7 in all the abilities. So for the languages, or for the language, they measure your reading ability, they measure your listening ability, they measure your writing ability, and they measure your speaking ability also, right? So there are 4 things. So you do reading, you do writing, you do speaking, and you do listening. So 4 of it. So if your job or your occupation that you are using for the express entry, the Canadian experience class, is a tier 0 or 1, you need to get a CLB of at least 7. You need to get a CLB of at least 7 in all those 4 abilities that I said. So just like you can see there, so they are saying that CLB 7 for tier 0 or 1. So for example, the example that we use, which is the software engineer, and then we know that the software engineer is tier 1. So because software engineer is tier 1, if the person is applying for the Canadian experience class, the person should make sure that whether English or French exams that the person will take, they need to get a CLB of at least 7 in all the 4 abilities, right? Good. And then if your tier is 2 or 3, then you need to get a CLB of 5 in all the 4 abilities, right? So, I mean, if it is 2 or 3, it's a little bit flexible. 0 or 1, it is higher. Why? Because tier 0 and tier 1 are higher. So tier 0 is mostly management, jobs, management occupation, higher level. Tier one, you need a bachelor's degree for those. And then for tier two and three, it could be, colleges and apprentice and all those kind of things. So that's why if your job is tier two or three, you need to get at least CLB of 5. But if your tier is 0 or 1, you need to get 7, right there. And the same thing applies to French also, right? And then there are recognized organizations that you can take these tests from, right? So if you are inside Canada and you are listening to us, you want to do it, you can take it from CELPIP. CELPIP is accepted, and then they take the general one. So you need to take the CELPIP general test, and then if you are writing the IELTS also, you need to take the IELTS general test also, because with the IELTS they have academic and then we have the general one. So the general one is mostly used for immigration purposes, so you need to be very specific when you are registering your IELTS. You can write it inside Canada or anywhere. IELTS is global, but for Canada, CELPIP is mostly Canadian. I think few countries, I think 2 of them also, but for CELPIP it's more Canadian. IELTS is more global, so if you're outside Canada, then you don't have any option than to do this one, the IELTS. If you're inside Canada, you can try the CELPIP. And then they also added the PTE core. I think that one is also written here in Canada and a few other places. So if you are in Canada, you have the option to choose between CELPIP, PTE, and IELTS. So personally for me, I did IELTS, but I would recommend the CELPIP because of what I have seen, what I've seen. Because yeah, I realized CELPIP is much more, manageable as compared to the IELTS. I mean, it's understandable. They are trying to promote their own, right? So they make it much more manageable so that a lot of people will be doing the CELPIP. And I think right now, CELPIP has taken over the market. It's been a long time. I heard someone writing IELTS in Canada here, right? So their strategy has finally worked, right? Yeah. So those are the 3 English exams. I mean, recognized examination bodies that you can take, right? And then if you look at the IELTS, they are saying that they don't accept IELTS one skill retake for the express entry. So I think IELTS, they brought in something that if you fail a component, maybe an ability didn't go well for you, you can retake just that ability and then and then replace it. It's like, let me say, remedials, IELTS remedials kind of thing. So they are saying they don't accept IELTS one skill retake for the express entry. So if one skill did not go well for you, you have to write everything again, right? And then for the French side, too, there are 2 exams that they accept. You have the TEF Canada, and then we have the TCF Canada. So those people who can speak French, I mean, you can continue pronouncing it from there. I will just end at TEF Canada and then TCF Canada. I don't want any trouble.
Okay. That is very, very, very insightful. If you are watching us now, we are live on the Delali Network. Share the link. We have over 40 people watching us now. We want to increase the numbers, and it has been an insightful session so far. If you are thinking of applying for your PR through the Canadian Experience class, this is the right platform to be at this moment. So share the link and encourage others to join. Okay, let's continue. So concerning the language requirement, can I write the language test, that is the CELPIP or the IELTS, once I enter Canada as an international student, or when I write it down after some years, I cannot use it for my Canadian Experience class? If you can
Okay,
clarify that.
yeah, that's a very good question. So it depends on your strategy and everything, right? It depends on your strategy and everything. But for the English exams or the language exams or the French exams, whatever, the validity should be 2 years, right? It should be less than 2 years. So at every point in time that you submit your profile, you should make sure that the validity of your exams results, your language exams results, should be less than 2 years, right? It should be less than 2 years. So, for example, if some people may submit their profile and their exams results may expire. So if it expires, you need to rewrite it and then update your profile, right? So at every point in time, you have to make sure that your exams result is very valid. So now, if you came to Canada as an international student and then you wrote your CELPIP pilot, whatever, I don't know if you are doing the Canadian experience class because you came as a student. Probably you may not have Canadian experience. So even if you do it that early, by the time maybe you are ready, it may have expired. Right? I'm using the word may. So for me, I would advise that when you are about to when you are about to when you're about to when you're about to graduate, you can write it, unless maybe you want to be in the profile for other class, like the
Okay.
federal skilled worker. So if you want to do the federal skilled worker, that one, I mean, you can do it at any time. But if your focus is the Canadian experience class, then I mean, for the English exams, you can wait some time. If you feel you want to write it, you can write it at any point in time. I mean, you can write it. But then the point here is that your English exams or your French exams or language exams at every point in time should be less than 2 years old. So you can do your own analysis and see how it will work out for you. But the validity should be less than 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So talking about the language ability or the language test, is it just a matter of, oh, this is CLB 7. So my target is when I'm going to write. Once I get 777, that is in listening, in speaking, in writing, and reading 77 throughout, I'm good to go. I am eligible. I'll be nominated to, I'll be given an invitation to apply and apply for my PR once I get 77 throughout. Or the focus should be writing and passing very well. If you can clarify that.
Okay, so it's a two-way thing. One part is you being eligible, and one part is you being competitive, right? Because like we explained last week, it is a pool. Pool means a lot of people are inside the pool. You are not the only person. And when they are picking people or when they are inviting people, they give them ITA. So ITA is invitation to apply. So when you create a profile, you submit your profile, you put everything in there, your credential and everything, they will score you and they will give you a point. So when they are coming to invite people or when they want to issue ITA, they issue ITA to people who are competitive. I mean, they can't invite everyone, right? So they will use your scores to select you. It's just like in Ghana when you are going to secondary school, you write BC, those who are able to get good scores, they are selected by certain schools and all those kind of things. I mean, I don't know if they still do it in Ghana, right? So that's the same thing. So you getting the 7-7 or getting the 5-5, whatever, will make you eligible. But the fact that you are eligible doesn't mean that they are going to invite you or call you for PR by hook or crook. No. Like I said, it's competitive. And they give points, or points are rewarded to people who are competitive. So the more you score, the more points you get. So you may not necessarily be aiming at just the benchmark. You may try and get as high as you can get. I think the highest is CLB 10, right? So your focus could be maybe 10 or 9. But looking at how things are going, I would advise that if you are able or if you are capable of getting 10, why not get 10?
I
Because I
think
know a lot of
I think
people.
even with self-pip you can score. I think 11 or 12 with self-pip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 11 of 12, but it ends at 10. So
Yeah.
if you get 10, 11, 12, you all get the same thing, right? If
Okay.
you get 10, 11, or 12 on a certain on one ability is the same thing. So anywhere 10, 11, 12 is the same. So you may aim, getting 10, 10, 10. If you're able to get 10, 10, 10, you are good to go. If someone get 11, 11, 11, you are all same, you are all getting the same thing, right?
Okay.
So there is one part you meeting the requirement and another part you being competitive, right? So if you get 7-7, fine, you qualify, but that does not mean you are going to get it. If someone gets 9-9-9, the person has an upper hand. So, like you were saying, you have to try and maximize that, right? Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification for the language ability. So before we proceed, there is a question in the comment section. Let me just display it. So Damian is asking, does work experience while in school count towards the Canadian experience class? I think you
No,
answered this question last week, but if you can take it again for
no,
him.
no. So your work experience while you work, sorry, your work experience while in school does not count. It doesn't count towards your Canadian experience class. So, for example, you come here as an international student and then you are working, right? You are working, you are doing all those kind of things. That work experience doesn't count towards your Canadian experience class. No. So once you are done with school, you have PG or BP or whatever work permit, whatever work that you do from there, it counts towards your Canadian experience. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. So let's continue. Talking about the educational requirement. If I'm coming to Canada, should I come and pursue, let's say, a certificate program, a diploma program, a graduate certificate program, a master's, a PhD, or any other level of program in Canada before I can qualify for the Canadian experience class? If you can touch on that.
Okay, so for the Canadian experience class, you don't need an education for it, right? You
Okay.
don't need to have, let's say, secondary, bachelor's, whatever, master's, PhD. No, you don't need it, right? There is no education requirement. But then the truth of the matter, we are still coming back to it that they are what points. So if education, you don't have any education, remember you are going to rank low, right? Remember, you are going to rank low. So if you have education, you are going to rank high. So just like you can see, they even added that there is no education requirement for the Canadian experience class. However, if you want to improve your rank in the pool, then it's advisable to have education, right? So the education could be, Canadian education, it could be foreign education. If it is a Canadian education, you don't need any what do you call it, credential evaluation for it. But if it's a foreign education, then you need a credential assessment for it. Right. Yeah. So to answer the question, there is no requirement for education for you to qualify. However, if you have the education, it will help you or it will boost your score in the pool. So the higher education that you have, the higher the points that you have. And fortunately, if you are able to get Canadian education, it will give you an extra point. You get it? Yes.
Okay. So let's say I've come to Canada and I studied a bachelor's in a particular field. You are saying the Canadian education, I don't need to do what we call the educational credential evaluation or the educational credential assessment.
Yeah, you don't need that.
So
So if
what of my, let's say, my diploma back home?
okay,
Even though I
so
have a bachelor's, which is higher now, can
mhm.
I still attach the diploma to my bachelor's so that I'll go and do the evaluation for only the diploma in order to get extra points, since that is also another qualification, but just that it's a foreign qualification?
Okay, so if I got your question, you did diploma in Ghana, right?
Yes,
And then you've come to Canada to do a bachelor's, right?
yes.
Good. So bachelor's is now your highest level of education, right? That's the highest
Okay,
level. So for the highest level of education, being bachelor's, which is Canadian, you don't need the Canadian you don't need any evaluation for that because that one was already done in Canada here. But with the diploma here, right, because the diploma is not the highest level, I mean, that's not the highest level of your education, you may not need to do evaluation for the diploma. You may not need that. But you may need evaluation if, let's say, you don't have this. For example, okay, let me put it this way. So you will need the evaluation, for example, when you are using a foreign education as your highest level, because some people they already have masters in Canada, sorry, in Ghana, right?
okay,
And then they came to Canada to do maybe a certificate program or a diploma program or something like that,
okay,
right? So for them, they have master's degree, right, which was done in, let's say, in Ghana, and they have come to Canada to do a diploma. So in this situation, the person's highest level of education is a master's, right? So that is what the person is actually going to use, right, to get more points. So with that, because it was not attained in Canada here, you would have to do an education credential for it because you are using it as your highest credential in the system. Do
okay.
we understand it right? So
Yes,
if I have a master's from Ghana, I came to Canada to do a diploma, right? Diploma is lower than master's, right? Though I didn't do the master's here, but I'm entering the pool and I'm using master's as my highest level of education. Because it is not Canadian, I have to do an ECA for that.
okay,
But if I did diploma in Ghana, I came here to do bachelor's. The bachelor's is higher than the diploma, right? So technically, the bachelor's, I should have done ECA for it, but it was attained in Canada here, so I don't need to do any ECA for it. The diploma too, I don't need to do any ECA for it because it is my lowest, like I'm not using it as my highest credential. Yeah.
Okay. But what of if I want to get extra point for the pool? Because there is a point in the CRS calculator which mentions 2 or more qualification, and one should be some number of years. I'm coming. Let me just try and see if I could get that for us, so that if you could clarify that once again. Good. I found what I'm looking
So the
for. So let me
points,
just.
the points you'll be giving points. Mhm.
So I've just found what I'm looking for. So with this is what I wanted to: 2 or more certificates, diplomas or degrees. One must be a program of 3 or more years. So as I was asking, I have a diploma in Ghana, then I came to do a bachelor's here.
So the
Can I
diploma,
evaluate the diploma in Ghana and add to the Canadian bachelor's so that I'll be able to get extra points, since we have an option which says 2 or more certificates, diplomas or degrees? One must be for a program of 3 years or more years.
okay, so if you check up there, you see enter the highest level of education for which you have, right? And then they go on and a Canadian degree, diploma, or
Okay.
certificate, or had an ECA credential. If you did your study outside Canada, ECA must be reported in the last 5 years, right? So what
Yeah.
does it mean here? So they are looking for your highest level of education, your
Okay.
highest level of education. So right now we are talking about the credential assessment here,
Okay.
right? So if your highest level was not done in Canada, then you need an ECA for it. So
Okay.
now you have bachelor's, you have diploma. Now bachelor's is higher,
Yeah.
right? So the bachelor's you did it here. So per this one, you don't need the ECA for the bachelor's. That is the
What of the
highest.
diploma?
So the diploma, you will get points for it. They will
Okay.
definitely give you points for it. The points you will get it, because one thing that they look at it that um, so for example, if someone has a master's, no one can get a master's without getting a bachelor's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So they look at that way. But for using diploma low rank, I don't know. Maybe I just have to confirm, but I'm not sure you would have to do an assessment for the diploma if it is not your highest level of education that you are using. Though you may be given a point for it, but I just need to confirm that. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't think you may need to do an ECA report for um, that.
Okay. So thanks for that clarification. Then another thing I've noticed is they also spoke about admissibility. If you want to apply for the Canadian Experience class, you also spoke about admissibility. So if you can touch on what is meant by the admissibility.
Admissibility.
Yes.
Okay, so with the admissibility, I mean, so when an application is being assessed, there's the eligibility side. So they first check the eligibility to make sure that you are eligible for the program and everything. So once
Okay.
they are done with the eligibility, they will come to the admissibility to make sure that this person is the person allowed to enter Canada or not. So the mere
Okay.
fact that you're eligible, you have the PR, you have your study visa, you have your work visa, does not mean when you get to the port of entry, they are going to allow you to enter the country. No, right? The
Okay.
only people who have the right to enter Canada are Canadian citizens and registered Indians. So not registered Indians like we know, I mean the indigenous people here in Canada.
Okay.
They are the only people who have the right to enter Canada regardless of everything. Until those people, when they get to the port of entry, what they do is they just validate their status to make sure, say, oh, okay, the Lally got to the airport. The Lally is saying that I'm a citizen, I'm a registered Indian. They are just confirming and making sure that the Lally is a Canadian or registered Indian. Once they confirm that, they just allow you. So for Canadians and registered Indians, they are the only people that have the right to enter Canada regardless. But for temporary residents, work visits, PRs, you don't have that absolute right. So even if you're a PR and then you go out of the country, you come, they need to check certain things before they allow you to come in, right? So that is the admissibility side. So there are certain things that can make people inadmissible, meaning they will not be allowed to enter Canada. So it
Okay.
could be on security grounds. Maybe the person has done something against security, has engaged in something security wise. So if you are found on those grounds, the person may not be allowed to enter Canada. That is one thing. And then they have maybe criminality. If maybe you have done a crime, depending on whatever type, you may also be inadmissible for criminality, serious criminality, and all those kind of things. And then some people may also be inadmissible for misrepresentation. So some people have done applications and then they misrepresented, they were banned for 5 years and all those kind of things. You may also be inadmissible if you have a misrepresentation. And then some people may be inadmissible medically, right? Maybe there are certain things, that they have medically that may not allow them to enter Canada. And then financially, too, some people can be inadmissible. So you have all those kind of things over there that can make people inadmissible. So the fact that you qualify, you're eligible, you're given a PR, whatever, it's not done there. They need to check your admissibility also. So that's why you do the background check, they do the biometrics and everything to make sure that you have absolutely nothing that will make you inadmissible to enter Canada. So that's why they've written that some people are not allowed to enter Canada. There are different reasons that we may not let you into Canada, such as security, criminal, or medical reasons, right? So if any of those things happen to you, you may not be able to enter Canada. So the word is may not be able. It's not that you won't be able, because there are certain ways you can even overcome those inadmissibilities. That's why they are using the word may. You get it? Yes.
Okay. Thanks very much for that clarification. So if you are watching us live now, we have about 60 people who are following the discussion. Continue to share the link. We've done almost an hour. We are talking about Canadian experience class currently. If you have missed the session from the beginning, don't worry. The recorded version will be on YouTube. And remember to hit the subscribe button. Okay, so talking about the last point, with the Canadian experience class, do I have to also select where I want to live in Canada, even though I am working in a particular province or city already? Do I have to still, how important is it for me to also choose where I want to live in Canada when I'm doing my Canadian experience class for my permanent residence?
Okay, so when you are submitting your profile for the PR, I mean, they will ask you like the province where you would like to, stay when you get a PR. So apart from the province of Quebec, I mean, you can select everywhere. And so the express entry, Quebec doesn't use that. Like the Canadian experience class, federal skilled worker, federal skilled trade, Quebec is an exception. So if you want to reside in Quebec, then you need to go through their also immigration program. That's a different thing. But if you are living in anywhere apart from Quebec, then you are good to go. So you can select Ontario, anywhere, Alberta, British Columbia, those kind of things. So if you remember last week, we were saying something about the PNPs, that with the PNPs, we have two of them. We have the express entry PNP, and then we have the non-express entry PNP. So this is where the express entry PNP comes in. You see,
Okay.
when you're submitting your profile, you need to show where you want. So let's say Ontario, BC, whatever, right? So sometimes those provinces also will come into the pool, right? So they'll come into the pool, they'll just do a quick search. So the search will be like, okay, we want people who showed interest in, let's say, Ontario, in BC, in Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, New Brunswick, any province, right? So they can also go in there. And then they'll say, okay, now I'm selecting people that, selected, let's say, Alberta as their destination, right? So
Okay.
that list will come. So once that list comes, they will be like, okay, now I want people in there whose occupation are, let's say, maybe software engineer, doctors, lawyers, nurses, these people, that they can do those selections. And then you'll be there, right? You'll be there, and then a province will reach out to you that, oh, maybe in your express entry you showed interest in maybe province of Alberta. We went through that, and then we are extending hands to you that we are interested in you. So reach out to us. So when you reach out to them, you submit whatever thing, they'll give you that nomination. You get that 600 points. You add it to already point that you have in your express entry, it goes up. So there are certain draws when they do, they will say, oh, we are inviting PMPs only. That's how it comes about. So there may be people inside the pool who may have nominations. So the province, extended to them, like reached out to them that, oh, we are interested in you. We'll give you a nomination. So you show that interest, they'll give you that 600 points nomination certificate. You now update your profile, you get that 600, and then, you go. So they may do a draw, which will invite people with, PMP nominations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that as well. And I think we've used about an hour to break down the details of Canadian Experience class. I want us to proceed and look at the data for Canadian Experience class, and we'll talk about it. Then you explain about the tiebreaker and also ways by which people who are currently in the pool and prospective candidates can also prepare and ensure that they meet the rising marks or the rising points for the pool. But before we continue, I just have a little advert to make. So if you are in US or Canada and you want to send money back home, you need a fast, reliable, and secure way to send money back home. With LEMFI, you can send money to your loved ones in 1 minute. And the interesting thing about it is there are zero transfer fees and you get a best exchange rate. So whether you want to send school fees, you want to send family support, or you just want to surprise somebody, just download the LEMFI app and sign up. And also use the referral code ARABE, ARABE, ARABE. Whether you're in Canada or whether you're in US, just use this referral code to send money to your loved one back home and let them also know that they have burgers in the various countries. Thank you very much. Let's continue. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to project the data for the Canadian Experience class quickly.
Yeah,
So
so
that
to sorry, just to add something to the education side, right? So for the credential assessment, so just like the language exams, it needs to be valid. There is also validity for that, right?
okay,
So the validity for those credentials should be less than 5 years. It shouldn't be more than 5 years. It should be less than 5 years, right? Yes. So you need to assess your credential. Just like I said, if it is in Canada here, you don't need to assess it, right? But if you have two or more degrees or whatever, where one of them is at least 3 years or more, and you want to get points for them, you need to assess it, right? So the one that you said with the diploma. So for example, you came here with bachelor's, right? You did a bachelor's here. For that one, you don't need to assess it because it's Canadian. But with the diploma, if you want to get points for that, you would need to do an assessment for it. The reason why you need to do an assessment for it is because you are combining two credentials, and at least one of them is 3 years. So we need to take it clearly here. If you want to get, if you have two or more credentials and you want to get points for it, at least one of them should be more than 3 years. One of the credentials. And it's two credentials. Na nimi a diploma 2 years, 2 years. None of them is more than 3 years. Right. So I wouldn't be able to get points for the two of them. But if I have multiple credentials and I'm getting points for all of them, at least one of the credentials should be at least 3 years or more. I mean, the duration. And you need to, assess them to get the points for it. So, for example, with the bachelor's example, bachelor's is 3 years or more, right? And then
yeah,
you did diploma, which is 2 years outside Ghana, sorry, in Ghana. So to get points for that, you need to assess the diploma, right? Yes.
okay, okay. Thank you very much for this clarification. So my advert once again, if you want to send money from either Ghana or USA back home, just download the LEMFI app and you get a 20% cash back for the first time you are sending $100 or more. And the referral code is ARABEE, ARABEE. So kindly download the LEMFI app and use the referral code. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me just project the data quickly for the Canadian experience class.
Are we done with all the this one under the Canadian experience class?
Yes, I believe so. But if there is something which I have left out and you want to touch on, you are free to touch on it, please.
I don't know. I don't know if we have touched on everything. I don't know.
Yes, I think we've done justice to each of them.
Okay. Yeah. So you can project it. So I think yesterday they did a draw for the Canadian experience class, right? Yes.
So draws for express entry.
So like you said, it's all about point system. So you have to try and maximize your points. So the fact that you are eligible does not mean that you'll be called. So you need to make sure that at least you have something very competitive in the pool so that you can be invited at every point in time.
Yeah, so this is what we have. Oh, I think they even did a draw for French today as we were talking.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, today is 4th September, right?
Yes, 4th September.
Yeah. So if you look at the dates here, French language proficiency 446.
If you're projecting your screen, we can see you.
Okay, I'm coming. Let me just. Can you see now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes. So you see, today they did a draw for French proficiency, right? So people with French proficiency. So last week we said to qualify for the French proficiency, you should have a CLB of 7 in French, right? In French, in 7 to qualify for that. So not just say church or French be then qualify. You need to have CLB of 7. So once you have that, you qualify for that French language. And it's a score. If your CRS is 446, you are good to go. So I think they just did it today, and they have invited 4,500 people. And then you see how the category draws, the scores are very low. You see the cutoff is 446. And just a day before they did for Canadian experience class, the cutoff was 534. So you can see how high the Canadian experience class is. Yes. So now, seeing all these things, then you know how to play your cards well. You see, with the Canadian experience class, they invited just 1,000 people. The French, they invited 4,500 people. And then the lowest rank was 446, meaning the lowest person had 446. So if you had 446, you may have a chance. You get it? So all in all, we are trying to say that the category ones are much more manageable. So you should focus there. So these are some of the things that you can look at to map up your strategy. You see, see, right now that you've seen that French, imuda hono. I mean, you can start learning French and make sure so you get some score good there, and then add it to it, JOSes, and then you go your way, right? Because for the Canadian experience class is very, very hot. And then if you look at the healthcare and social sciences, you see also scoring is very manageable. 470, and they invited 2,500 people, right? So you can play around these numbers, these figures, and then you can map up your strategy very well. So maybe you can click on the French draw, and then we can have a look at that.
Okay.
Good. So so now you can see the number of invitations is 4,500, right? So those are the number of people that they invited them, the date and the time of the round. So that's the date and time. And then the lowest ranked is 446. And then the tie-breaking rule is June 16th, 2025 at that particular time. So the tie-breaking rule basically means that right now they are picking people, right? And then the lowest person that rank is 446. So imagine that the lowest rank, they have multiple people, they have a lot of people, right? That all of them, they had 446. Now who should they select, right? So they have selected lowest rank person should have 446, but then 446, they have a lot of people who had 446, and they just need 4,500 people. And for example, they need 4,500 people. They have selected it, and the score that they use for the lowest is 446. It's only 446. They have realized above 4,500. So now some people need to get out, right? So what will they use to get some people out? That's the tie breaking. So they will select all those people who are ranking low. So for example, Della had 446. Myself, I had 446, and then one person also had 446. Now they just need one person to select. they are going to use the tie-breaking rule. So the tie-breaking rule will now depend on the time that we submitted our profile and then the date that we submitted our profile. So they will use the date, which is June 16th, 2025, and then that time to do that selection when we are on tie. So that's why we call it the tie-breaking. The same level. Now we need to select one person. So we select one person based on the time that we submitted our profile and then the date that we submitted the profile. So for the French draw that they did today, for those people who rank 446, the tie-breaking rule that they applied is June 16th, 2025, and then the time is 7:21:06 UTC. That's the universal coordinated time. So you see, even the time and the day that you submitted your profile can help you at the 11th hour. Yeah, so that's what we mean by that.
Okay, so let's say I have a score of 447. 447, and I submitted my profile, let's say June 20th, 2025. June 20th, 2025, and this draw is done. I have a score of 447. That is one higher than the lowest ranked candidate, and it was submitted in June 16th. Sorry, let's say July 16th, 2025. Will I still get nominated?
Yeah, you get nominated because you are above the lowest ranking score. So the
Okay.
tie-breaking rule is applied to those who have the lowest ranking score. So when they do the draw, they themselves will say, okay, the lowest number we want to select is, let's say, 446. That's what it means. So the tie-breaking rule will only apply to those who had 446. So if you had 447, you are not part of them. It will apply to those who had 446. So when you get there, you see, they're explaining that if more than one candidate has the lowest score, so now the tie-breaking rule will apply to those who have the lowest score in that particular draw that they did.
Okay.
So if the lowest score is 446 and then you had 447, regardless of when you submitted, you are not part of that. I mean, it does not apply to you be selected, right? But omunya 446 no, the tie-breaking rule no ebe apply. You get a point? Yes.
Okay.
Because the reason why tie-breaking rule ni say they can't invite more. So say they have set their number like say 4,500.
Yeah.
But omoye selection no, right? Say, oh, let us pick those who had 446 and above. They ended up getting, let's say, 6,000 people. But 6,000 people, they can't invite all of them. They just want 4,500 there. So
Okay.
now they'll come to the lowest ranking people and say, so, okay, yeah, the tie be out for say, more ranking low. So it is applied to those that rank low for that particular draw. No more higher. So those that rank low. So until 446 now they'll come down and say, okay, the time that you submitted and then the date that you submitted, that is what they will use to do that, right? So if you had 447, you are good to go. 448, you are good to go. 449, you are good to go. But if you
Even
have
irrespective of I submitted my
yeah,
application after June or maybe June 17th and above.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, there is some issue with your network.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry, I had a little bit of.
Do you have any questions? I guess we have explained enough.
Yeah. So if we have any questions, please let's just go ahead and share our concerns in the comment section. I'll display them for my guests to touch on each of the questions for everyone. So let's take note of that. Okay, so looking at the data for the Canadian experience class, let me just go back to that. Comparing the last 5 draws. So the last 5 draws, we have one that is September 3rd. The cutoff score was 534. Then when you come to August 7th, still 1,000 people invited. The cutoff score was 534. Then when you come to July 8th, the cutoff score was 518, and they invited 3,000 people. even though the cutoff was low, but they invited 3,000 people. Then let's go to June 12th. No, let's go to June 26th. Canadian Experience class again. 3,000 people invited, 521. Then the last one, June 12th, Canadian Experience class, 3,529 people invited. Looking at the differences in the scores, the number of invitation, what do you have to say about people who are currently in the pool and don't have a high score? Let's say they have less than 510 or they are between 500 and 510. What do you have to say concerning those people with that point?
Yes, so it is very hard for you to say that it will be difficult for them to be invited and all that, because for the scores it depends on IRCC, whatever score they want to set. But we just use data or trend to say something, right? So if we are currently looking at the trend, right? Looking at the trend, if you look the trend, you see that for the Canadian experience class, anytime they do it, it's above 500. We all can confirm here, it's above 500. So if you are in the pool and then your score is below 500, right? And then maybe you are aiming for Canadian experience class, it may be difficult. It may, I'm using the word may, it may be difficult. So what can you do? There are so many things you can do. Maybe your English exams, is low, right? You can boost it up. Maybe you want to write French to boost it. You can, do that. But with the Canadian experience class right now, the scores are very high. So, currently looking at it, you should have somewhere, 500. Even with a 500, low 500 is even hard as at now. It should be mid 500. Let's say 515, 520, that side. You get it? Yes. So if you think the Canadian experience class is a little bit, maybe you can target the categories, the category draws. Yeah. So when you're submitting your profile, you don't actually choose which, which class you want to be. No, you don't choose yourself. It is your profile or your credentials. Now they are submitting and they choose your amount. You get a point. That is one thing I have to clarify. So nobody goes into the profile and say that I want to do experience class, Canadian experience, I want to do category, I want to do no, 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 no. At the end of the day, per the information you give the system will tell you, so, oh, you qualify for this, you qualify for that, you qualify for this. Right. Yeah. So that's how it works.
Okay. Okay. So what are some of the things people can do to boost their scores in order to meet these high scores for the Canadian experience class so
So,
that
like
they'll
I
be
said,
invited?
the language exams, one thing, the language
Okay.
exams, though, because it is something that you have control over. For
Okay.
your age, you don't have control over your age. I mean, you don't have control over your age. But for
Okay.
language exams, you have control over that. So you would want to make sure, say, at the end of the day, you are maxing the language exams out, because for that you have control over it, right? And then education, you may not necessarily have control over. It depends. For the education, depends. Maybe I know why your school navy, right? So it's kind bit me at was when you're more idea. It's up to you. But I mean, and on any immediate solution like that, because it will take you at least 1 year for you to finish a course. What you are saying, and no, any immediate solution like that. The one immediate solution part the language exams. That one is immediate, because that one you can just do it within a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That one is an immediate solution. So when people are trying to boost their score, the immediate solution that is recommended is maxing your language exams. For the education, it is not immediate, though you can use it, but it's not an immediate solution. Because if you want to go to school and get a master's, it can take years. You get it, to get PhDs can take years, to get a certificate can take some years. So that one is a solution, but it's not an immediate solution. For language exams, it's an immediate solution. And another one too, maybe your work experience, because the work experience, the more you have, the more you get points. So that one could also be another solution. But just like I said, it is not an immediate solution, because you can't rush your work experience. You can't rush it. You don't have that maximum control over that. You can't rush it. It takes time to build work experience. You get it? So the absolute one that you have absolute control is the language exams, right? So try and maximize that.
Okay. So talking about the language requirement, do you advise that if one can try hard and study the French, write the French language, the TCF or the TEF, and pass it. Will you recommend that as well?
Of course, we can all see it on the board, on the board of what you're projecting. We can see the French. You see, they've invited 4,000 people for French. Even Canadian experience class, they invited just 1,000, and French they've invited 4,500 people, and then the lowest rank is 446. So you can imagine, right? You can imagine what French can do in your life. Right now, French is important. To French is right now is very important here in Canada, right? They want to encourage a lot of people to start speaking French. So I mean, it's very important. They know what they are doing. You see, even Canadian experience class, they gave 1,000 for French. They gave 4,500, and then mind you, you realize that inside that 4,500 people invited for French, most of them are inside Canada here with Canadian works experience, but just that their scores were not that high. For the typical Canadian experience class, they needed to use strategy B, plan B, to cut in there. Onyanya and PREA, nobody is forcing the person to speak French again.
Okay. And have you had a case from maybe some of your friends or people you know who were able to use some few months to study the French, write the exams, and pass? Do you have any experience from someone like that?
You see, French, to be very proficient in French, I mean, it takes time. And it
Okay.
depends on you, your seriousness, and how you want to do it. And to be frank with you, the TCF exams and the TEF and the TCF, it's not that very, very hard. Right. You
Okay.
can actually pass it without, you can actually pass it without being a typical or a native French speaker. You can actually do
How?
it.
How
It's
was
an
it?
exams, right? It's an exam. So it's a mixture of strategy, right, to pass it. So if you know the structure of the exams, then you map out how to do it. So when you go for French classes to write those exams, and you have to know more so Obeka French in business at work. I mean, it will be there, but then the main focus is on how to pass the exams. So everything that they are teaching is much more focused on the exam side rather than say if you be question French, you say, oh, what do you call it? Juma, they are you may have it alongside doing it, but the main focus is on the pass the exams. So whatever they are doing is about the exams. So the strategies that they will put in place for you to do it to pass the exam, that's all the focus, right? Yeah, so you can actually do it. Also, and how bad that you need it. You get it, how bad you need it. Yeah, so it is absolutely possible. So you can give yourself like 6 months, and then constantly you can do it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. So, if you are looking for ways to maximize your scores, as my brother just mentioned, one of the ways is to retake your language test, that is the English, and ensure that you get a high score, at least 10 for each of the levels or above. And also, as he mentioned, you can also go in for the French language. You can just try and prepare, give yourself some months, study and write, and get the necessary scores they want for the French as well, because that also helps to boost your profile very, very well. What if someone also has a sibling in Canada? Will that also help, especially if the person has, let's say, between 510 or 515? Would that help the person?
Yeah, your sibling can also help. It depends on the kind of sibling that you have, right? Yeah,
Okay.
it will help. Yeah, like a brother, a sister, and those kind of things. So when you go there, they have defined who qualify. So just having a sibling here who is a Canadian or permanent resident can give you 15 points. So you know how important it is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And
Thank you
then
very much.
there's one thing I want you to go back. I don't know if there is a way that you can see the pool distribution. So there is a way you can see the pool distribution and
Yes.
see as at now as we are talking, people inside the pool, the scores that they have, the number of people having this score and that. Maybe you can
Yes.
go there and then
Understood.
you show them how the pool like look like. So when you submit your profile, everyone is kept in a pool, and then we have a distribution of how the pool is. So I want him to show us how the pool is, so that
Uh,
Okay, so you can scroll up. Up a bit.
Okay.
Up. Okay. So click on yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Good.
Okay.
So they are telling you the pool, how the pool look like. So when everyone submits the profile, it goes here, and this is the distribution, like how the numbers look like. So scroll down a bit,
Okay.
scroll down a bit, scroll down a bit, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Good. So right now there are 254,672 people in the pool as we are talking.
Okay.
Right. So we have 254,672 people inside the pool. And people having score of 0 to 300, they are 8,553. So meaning out of the 254,672, 672, 8,053 of them are having scores between 0 and 300.
Okay.
And then 19,955 people are having score between 301 to 350.
Okay.
And 52,798 people are having scores between 351 to 400. So more super, more
Yeah.
score between 351 to 400. There are 52,798 people in there. And
Yeah.
people having 401 to 410, they are 13,494. 494, yeah. And people having 411 to 420. So almost score here 411 to 420. So here 14,554. And those people having scored between 421 to 430, they are also 14,813. Then those who score between 431 to 440, they are also 16,245. And people with 441 to 450, they are also 15,220. So you can see now I'll jump the next one and go to 451 because 401 to 450 no, so I'll jump to 451 to 460. Also 15,600 968. Now, when you go, you see the rank. Now, baby, a whole here, no, 500 for no. So you
Okay.
see, people having 501 to 600 and one, we only pack 25,123. So you can
Okay.
imagine people with that high score. So what does it mean? It means it is very, very competitive. And right now, the draws does not flow like that. Before they were doing draws every 2 weeks. But right now they don't do it as often. So by the time they do draw, now people are say there. Remember, by the time they do draw, people scores keep updating. So yes,
Yes.
because
Yes.
always the normal air updating because maybe at the time that the person submitted a profile, his work experience was just a year.
Yeah.
Now maybe I would put him for some time, 2 years work experience also until automatically in the points no ebe increase ebe jumping. Maybe I
Yeah.
know 400 ni mu a ebi a jump a ebetimi de na be 500. So you realize after the na 500 for no so asa be also bi. Nti
Mm.
ebi ko na ebi ba. What you say? And here ebi ko na ebi ba. That's how it is. It's happening
So,
right now.
so with this pool distribution, it simply means that it is not only people who are in Canada, people who are outside Canada too are.
Everyone. It's not just for people inside Canada. So this is the pool. So everyone, everywhere. Yeah,
We'll send
everyone is
you.
there.
Okay. So looking at this pool distribution, what do you have to say concerning CEC category base and those things? What do you have to say looking at
So,
how the numbers are going and looking at the numbers in the pool currently? I
mhm.
said at a point in time, some people might have to go home looking at the way things are going.
Yes, and that is true. Because looking at it, so when we say from 501 to 600, we have a lot of people, 25,000,
Yeah.
a lot, right? And then that is where the Canadian experience class falls. A one pick a lot of people from. So
Okay.
meaning if you don't have anything 500s in the 500s, Canadian experience class right now may be difficult. I'm using the word may because me IRCC bit me sorry, and then they will say, oh, and then assessor today we've changed. Everyone 418 above, we're inviting you. It's up to them, right? Because they have done it before. During COVID, they did it. They have done it before. So they can do it. That's why I use the word may. So if your score is less than 500, it doesn't mean that they cannot call you. They can call you. It's at your own preference, right? But then I'm just talking from the point of data trend right now. So
Yeah.
looking at the data right now, there for the Canadian experience class, you need a higher point. IRC can wake up one morning and change everything. That's up to them. But I'm talking from what I'm seeing right now. Right, good. So right now you need a very good point, for the Canadian experience class. It is a honor EDR. Then if you have an occupation which qualifies under the category, agri, education, health, social services, STEM, education, then you can leverage on that, right? Because the category based is more on your occupation. You see, so if you have an occupation that qualifies under the category ones, then you may be lucky because we have seen that with the category draws, the scores are quite manageable. And then if you have some French proficiency, right now the data is also telling us, right? Yes. So
Okay.
you may check and see if your occupation qualifies under those categories, category occupation draws, those things.
Okay. So if you are watching us now, we are live on the Delali Network. We are talking about the pathways to permanent residency in Canada, the Canadian Experience Class, CEC, and the category-based draws. Share the link, invite others to join. And if you have any question, please leave it in any of our comment section, either on YouTube, Facebook, or X. I'll read it out to my guests and you will respond to it before we wrap up our session because we have about, I think, 10 to 15 minutes to close the session for the day. Okay, so looking at the Canadian Experience Class, that is the CEC, and the category based draw, which of them will you say is advantageous and easier to get an invitation to apply for your PR through?
This one is very clear. I mean, as from what we are seeing, I mean, the category Bs are taking lead now, right? The category Bs are taking lead now because the scores are very, very, manageable. Those manageable there. So I mean, the category ones are taking lead. Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, you don't choose it. The system choose you based on your credential. So you don't actually go in the profile and say, I am selecting category based. No, it doesn't work that way. The system automatically, choose you.
Okay. So when I create my profile for the express entry, does it mean automatically when I qualify for more than one of the routes, the system is automatically going to place me that, okay, let's say federal skilled worker, I've met it. Category based also, I've met it. CEC also, I've met it. If you can clarify that.
Yes. So, like I said, the express entry is for three of them: Canadian experience class, federal skilled worker, federal skilled trade. So, if you meet all of them, if you meet all the categories, if you meet all the three of them, the system will tell you that you meet all of them. Yeah, it will tell you that, okay, the Lally you meet Canadian experience class, okay, the Lally you meet federal skilled, or the Lally you meet federal skilled trade. Right. So, it will tell you which one you meet. When you submit your profile, yeah, it will tell you.
Okay. So, what if I'm working in a particular role where the NOC, that is the National Occupation Classification List, is not prioritized? For example, I'm not working in tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. What advice will you have for such people, even though they have their postgraduate work permit
Hmm.
and they spent, like, let's say 1 year on it? So let's say if you have a 3 year, you've spent 1 year, you have about 2 years more, but you're not working in any of the NOCs which will qualify you. What advice do you have for such a person?
Hmm. So for the Canadian experience class and then the federal skilled worker, like we know, you need tier 0, 1, 2, 3. So if you don't fall in there, I mean, oh, it will be difficult for you, right? So if that is the case, then you may want to look at, being in an occupation, 0, 1, 2, 3. You may want to, because even if you are doing the provincial nominee, most of the provincial nominee class, they would need 0, 1, 2, 3. For the 4, 5s, it's a little bit dicey. Right. So if you are in tier 4, tier 5, it's a little bit dicey. Tier 4, tier 5, tier 6, those are more the skilled ones, right? The skilled trade thems. So if you have that, then you can target those areas. So maybe we can talk about that later, sometime later. Right.
Okay.
So for people who are 4, 5, and so on. But if your tier is 4 or 5 and it's not in the skilled trade, the chances may be very slim for you, unless say you have tier 4, 5, and then you are in the trades. That one you may have a chance. But so we need trade in Imuna or tier 4. For example, be a born more bank, right?
Yeah.
But new role no tier 4. And I say tier 5. I mean, you can't use it for it will be very difficult for you. It will be very, very difficult for you. Because those ones, it is difficult. But if you have tier 4 or 5 and then you are in the trade side, maybe you may have a chance. Yeah. Because a honor no more level no the form kakra.
Okay. So you speaking about the trade side, will you advise that if I am considering programs to come and study here, and for the sake of future purposes and looking at how the score distributions are going in the pool, I should rather focus on coming to study a skilled related program here or a trades related program so that I can use that route to apply for my PR? What do you have to say concerning that?
Yes. So last week I think I spoke on this. That right now, looking at how things are going, you need to be very strategic in what you come to Canada to study, because
Okay.
certain things are not prioritized right now. Right, there are certain things that they no longer need it. So if you come to Canada and then you do the businesses, those kind of things, management, right now it's not their priority. So one thing I will advise people is when you are coming to study in Canada, one thing you should know is the focus. So where is the focus right now? What do they need right now? So when you come in here or you are coming here, you would have to make sure that everything that you are doing is in line with what they need. You get it? In line with what they need. Because right now their priority is STEM, healthcare, education, that so you may want to look at those things. Right. So first you need to know what the country needs, and then you can strategize yourself to fall within their plan. You get a point. So not just coming here to do anything, for just learning sake. You and I know that you write in your study plan that, oh, I'll come and learn, I'll go back to my country, change Ghana, but no one is changing Ghana. When you all finish, you stay here, right? So I mean, you would want to make sure that whatever you come here to study, at least it is something that is needed.
Okay. Looking at your time or during your period and as compared to now, will you say it's very tough now as compared to your time in Canada?
Yeah, it's very tough now. Right now, it's very, very tough. Right now, it's very, very tough. Yeah. To be honest with you, it's very, very tough. Because I mean, that time, um, we were not a lot here. Because right now, we are right now a lot of people, right? So people have come in with different profile, higher scores and those kind of things. Right now is difficult, and right now, they are trying to reduce the number of people that come into the country. So at least that is also another thing. So right now, overall, generally, I would say this time is much harder than before. Yeah. And then the sanity, then that's how it works, right? So
Okay. So once again, looking at the distribution of scores in the pool, will you advise that one totally ignores the express entry and maybe consider going to provinces that have these provincial nomination programs as well?
no, I mean this thing you can do a combination of it,
Okay.
right? It's baby, anywhere, just go. Anywhere you feel, at least you can do something, show something there. You get it. So express entry, you can open a profile, you can do it. If you're in Ontario and then you feel you qualify for OIMP, you can also do it. Yesterday, I think just yesterday, OIMP they're also doing draws. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
you know.
think I think they did two draws this week too.
You get it. So anywhere. So YMP Ontario, they're also doing their PMP over there. So you may want to check there also. If it is other provinces you feel you qualify for certain things, you can also check all those places. So you shouldn't just put or focus on just the express entry, no.
Okay.
It has to be
There's this school of thought that also mentions that
Mhm.
since I'm not qualifying for most of the major routes for PR.
Mhm.
It is still better to pursue education, education, education. What do you have to say about that?
You see, at the end of the day, it will come back to money. Do you have the money to do that? Because school is not free, right? And then as an international student, it's very expensive. And if you find yourself in Ontario and some provinces, the tuition may be very very high. And if you're an international student, you may not get time to do a lot of work, right?
Okay.
And right now, most employers are not even employing students. Most of the employers right now, they don't like students, right? So it may be difficult for you if you don't have the funds, right? Yeah. Into school near there is important, but I mean, so who could be here? It's okay. You don't have to be going to school plenty because you want to get points, whatever, to buy time and all those kinds of things. Because to what end are you doing that? And then it involves money. It's not cheap. Oh. Every semester, like 3 4 months, you're going to pay like 10K, $10,000. How much do you have saved? Right. So it's not an easy thing. So I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that. For me, I would recommend that before you even come to Canada here, you should have the plan. One thing you should know is you should be very, very selective on the course type that you are coming to study here in Canada. Right. You need to be very selective on that. And then when you come, you need to really build your network.
Continue, continue.
Yeah, when you come, you really need to build your network and make sure that whatever you are studying, I mean, you are strategic, so you picked a very good program with high prospects. As you are studying, you have to network a lot, right? So that you can engage with people in the industry, build those kind of networks, so that at the end of the day, when you are done with school, you not find it very hard getting a job or employment or whatever, right? So once you have that good network and you are lucky, you are able to get that job. Once you get that job, it's very easy for you to get a PR. It's not that very difficult because, like you said, everything we are doing is based on experience, right? So the earlier you get experience, the better it will be for you, right? But then all these things you need to plan ahead before, because some people they wait till they complete school, get their PGWP. Now now they'll start, even doing what do you call it? um, um, Searching for job, building their CV and all. Yesterday, someone sent his CV to me, to me for me to review. But these things are things that you should have done a long time ago. And right now, the job market in the world is very, very tough. It's very, very tough. Right now, the job market, I say, right, it's not very easy getting jobs like it used to be. So when I was done with school, you can apply for job, let's say today, tomorrow, recruiters will call you. But right now, I don't think it's like that. Right. Right now, I don't think it's like that. When I was done with school, I was getting multiple offers from multiple employers. But right now, to get even one is very, very difficult because most companies are laying off and those kind of things. So right now, times are very hard. All I'm trying to say is times are very hard. You need to be very strategic in all the things that you do. Right now, getting PR is getting harder. Getting jobs is also getting harder. So I mean, you need to really, really map up your strategy.
Okay. So if you're watching us now, we are live from the Delali Network. Remember to subscribe and recommend this channel to a friend as well. Share the link and invite others to join. If you have any question, just leave it in the comment section and we'll display it for our guests to respond. We have about 10 minutes to go. We are wrapping up the session very soon. So talking about finishing school as well and getting into the job market. Let's say I've studied in Ontario and I've gotten a job offer in, let's say, Yukon or Nova Scotia,
Mhm.
will you advise I go in for it for the sake of PR purposes? And let's
Well,
say the job offer and the salary too is something which is good.
yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, you are done with school, you are looking for job, and you've gotten the job. So why not? If the job is going to help you, I mean, why not? You have to go.
But
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
see, some provinces too, once you leave, we have what we call the risk factors.
Mhm.
So let's say you schooled in the province and you don't get a job in the province, you leave the province. Sometimes when you're applying for the provincial nomination programs,
it becomes a little difficult. That is why I've asked this question. So if you can
Okay, so
clarify
I
that.
will answer you that you see, each PMP program they have several streams. Some
Okay.
of them they have streams for school students there, people who school there. For example, OIMP they have a stream for international students who schooled in Ontario.
Yeah.
The same way, they have a stream for people who are employed in Ontario. So that one you don't necessarily have to be, you don't necessarily have to have had an education in Ontario, right? So
Okay.
the same for other provinces too. So they also have streams that they have for people who school there, and then they have streams for people who are working there. They don't school there, but they are working there. Right. So, for example, if I schooled in Ontario and I got a job in Nova Scotia, I may not qualify for maybe streams that are targeting people who schooled in Nova Scotia, but I
Okay.
may qualify for streams that are targeting people who are working in Nova Scotia. You
Maybe
get it?
maybe a skilled worker in Nova Scotia.
You get it. Yes. So the programs are many within the province, the PMP, they have a lot of them. And I don't think it targets only people who school there. No,
Okay.
that category is there, and they have a category for people who are also even employed there. So that's how some people are even outside Canada, they're able to get PMPs because some people are lucky to be employed by certain employers in those provinces, give them work permit, come into Canada, and then apply PR through the province.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter where you schooled, where you did it. No, no, no. If you get a job there and then you think that job will help you qualify for one of their programs over there, come on, go for it.
Okay.
When I was done with school, I was in Quebec for some time. Yeah.
Okay.
So I needed the experience, to do my express entry, and
Okay.
I got it. So that's what I used for the express entry. I think I spoke about it last time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
last week.
Okay. But looking at the numbers for the PMP currently, if you notice the um, immigration levels for this year provincial nomination programs, almost every province has its last 2 years numbers slashed by half. For example, Ontario had about 20,000 plus, now they have about 10,000.
Mhm.
Manitoba had about 9,400 and something plus. Now they have about 4,000, a little bit above 4,000, and other provinces. Is it still worth it to move from province A to province B when you get a good job offer?
I mean, the Lali, you can never tell. Though the numbers have reduced, so the strategy has also reduced. The strategy has also changed.
Okay.
Because, for example, the OIMP last year, they invited a lot of people with master's, PhD who did it there. Today, up
Yeah.
to now, they've not done such draws. And even they had stream for international students who had job offers and all. They were inviting a lot of people. Right now, the strategy has changed. Even within that stream, they have created a mini stream in there. You see what they have done again. So, for example, now if an international student with job offer and you do that international student stream under the YMP, it's not automatic like that. Because
Okay.
right now they are even inviting people who are international students who have job offers but are working at certain places in Ontario or doing certain jobs in Ontario, all because right now the numbers have gone down. I mean, the allocation that they used to have has gone down. So right now they also need to strategize it and make sure that the nominations are given to people whom they actually need. So even right now, with the Ontario PNP is getting very selective now, and people who are living in those remote areas in Ontario are getting the nominations because the ones that they did, I was checking, and there are some places, I'm like, wow, these places are there people there? Yeah, right. So right now,
You
that is how things are changing now. So, for
okay?
example, if Manitoba has 4,000 people for the whole year, you can imagine. Right now, they need to be very selective. You see it?
In
They need to be
fact, they are very very selective when it comes
uh,
to PMP of late. Very very
uh,
selective.
before if they have before if they had, let's say, 9,000. I have money.
Yeah.
Maybe I told be say you get it when you have money. When you have money, you don't learn sense because money is there. So you just keep spending. So then you start doing budget. You get it, and sanity. So before they had, let's say, 9,000, oh, they were just giving it. All right, now they have 4,000, so they need to do budget. They need to be very selective. Asemeba, you get it. Yeah. So that's how now it's getting to. So you also need to play your cards well.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for the clarification. Before we go, let me display this advert once again. If you want to send money from US to Ghana or from Canada to Ghana, just download the Lemfi app. It has the best rate and also there are zero transfer fees. And your first time when you're sending $100 or more, you get a cashback of $20. So download the Lemfi app and the referral code is Arabi ARABEE. You use this for your transfers. Thank you very much. Okay, so my good brother, what are your closing remarks for our over 70 listeners who are watching us now? What are your closing remarks for them? Those in Canada, those outside Canada, what strategies should they employ so that at the end of the day, at least through our discussions here, they would say, oh, they've picked a lesson or two from, and through that, they've also been able to get their PR whilst in Canada or even from outside Canada.
Hmm. Okay, so if you're outside Canada, if you are inside Canada right now, you need to be very familiar with whatever is going on in terms of immigration, in terms of the numbers, in terms of what they need, and how you can strategize yourself, or how you can position yourself to maximize your chances. So, like we said, your age matters, your education level matters, your language ability matters, and your work experience also matters. If you have a family member, brother or sister, depending on the level of the relationship, you can also get some points for that. So you have to try and maximize all that. Right, you have to try and maximize all that. You have to check the provinces also. So you go to the provinces, their PNP website. They have a lot of programs. Read through them, see which ones you qualify, which one you can leverage. Check that, the same as the express entry, the same thing. And even there are other economic migration programs which are not under the express entry. We also have them there. So you can also check. They have a lot of programs. You can also check and see if you qualify for some of them too. You get it. Those things are also there. And then overall, you just put things in very well, and I think you should be good from there. So once you keep watching these things, I mean, you should be able to map up your own plan. If you listen to us, I mean, we've spoken about a whole lot of things here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for listening to us and for tuning in. If you have not subscribed yet, I'll advise that you kindly hit the subscribe button and also you recommend the channel to a friend. We do this and every Thursday at 7 p.m. GMT. We bring guests from study abroad to permanent residency from different countries so that they will come on board and share their experiences with us. And today is one of such session. Our brother came in as an international student several years ago, and through that pathway, he has been able to get his permanent residency, and he's on board, and he has shared his experiences with us. If you've missed the session, don't worry at all. Just take your time, go and have a look at the recorded version, which will be right on my channel right after the stream. Make some notes and map up your plan very well, because planning is very important in your study abroad journey or your PR pathway. Thank you for joining and see you another time. Bye bye.
Bye.